going to do a post-mortem of why Maruti kept it from market method. Can we do that? What magic Suzuki has done? They put one robot at the fundamental science. When the force is applied, Suzuki avoid that. Nobody want to do that. Hello friends, welcome to Mashofreaks Travel and Auto. You are watching Jimny Cookbook series where we talk about everything about Jimny, and hopefully you are enjoying this series. So today we are going to touch upon a very interesting topic. In Jimny, there are few things which are very weird, but one thing which is actually weird for most of the Jimny owners, and that weird thing is it's a moon-like big turning circle. So its turning radius is huge actually. So let's start the video. If you compare with any other vehicle in the market, many vehicle actually, the turning radius of those vehicles are much lesser than this particular vehicle. So so this is something basically we are going to talk about today, and not just we are going to talk about, we are going to do a post-mortem of that, why it is so and what we can do about that. During the post-mortem of this huge turning radius, what all we are trying to understand in this particular video is why this turning radius is so large. Why Maruti kept it like this? Did the Maruti actually really try to reduce it? And if they really try to reduce it, what are the challenges actually? And the next question is, can we reduce it our own by using some aftermarket method? Can we do that? So yes and no. These are all the things we are going to talk about today's video. So hopefully this is going to be very interesting. So be with me till the end of this video. I'll make it sure that you'll get the answer for most of the questions, and hopefully you will enjoy that. To start this video, let's talk about the turning radius of few popular vehicles. Thar is having approximately 5.5 meter. Scorpio N is having turning radius of 5.4 meter. Even I think Rox also have 5.5 meter, right? Force Gurkha is having 5.65 meter. Brezza is having turning radius of 5.2. Mahindra 3XO is having a turning radius of 5.3. So most of the vehicle I'm talking about are basically either 4 meter or a little more than 4 meter actually. Even in all those vehicles, the turning radius is much lesser than Jimny. Last but not least, the 3-door Jimny is having turning radius of 4.9. Then why this little vehicle is having turning radius of 5.7? So let's understand that. So let's understand what magic Suzuki has done while they were stretching it from 3-door Jimny to 5-door Jimny in their AutoCAD, AutoCAM, and then in the factories. So definitely there was some magic. So let's understand the magic. So actually the marvelous job is done by Suzuki. What they did is they put one robot at the front and one robot at the rear, and they stretch it. Well, from the jokes apart actually, what they actually did when they were actually stretching this vehicle, if they didn't stretch in this way, then why the turning radius has been increased? So let's understand what they actually did with the 340 mm increased length of this vehicle. To understand this particular subject, we also need to understand a few more parameters. Why they were actually stretching this vehicle from 3-door Jimny to 5-door Jimny by 340 mm, what they did is actually they increased the wheelbase of the vehicle actually. The wheelbase is the distance from the center of the tire hair to the distance of the center of the tire hair at the front actually. So this is a wheelbase. So this particular wheelbase is actually increased by 340 mm in this vehicle because the length has been increased. So where actually they need to accommodate this particular length. So this is the only way they actually increase the wheelbase. So it was a 2240 mm in 3-door Jimny and 2590 mm in 5-door Jimny. Again, this is 340 mm. So actually they increase the wheelbase of the vehicle, and this is how basically they accommodate the whole length. Now the question is, why I'm telling this to you? You already know that, because this is the most important factor. So let me tell you how. Before I'll tell you this, I want to take one example from our fundamental science. So for example, there is a formula F is equal to ma, where F is a force, right, which is a force applied, and A is an acceleration, and m is a mass, right? When the force is applied on a mass on a particular object, then it basically gets a motion, and actually motion is there. That means the force is directly proportional to acceleration here. So why I am giving you this example? Because this is a formula. We all actually learned that formula, I think up to our 10th standard, I believe, right? And this is nothing basically Newton's second law. Now here the force is directly proportional to acceleration. Likewise, Similarly, in the same fashion, your turning radius is directly proportional to your wheelbase. And that's a fundamental law. That doesn't mean you can't decrease the turning radius because there is a coefficient there actually. See, the turning radius is proportional to wheelbase of the vehicle actually. Like F is equal to ma, there is a mass there. Like that, there is another coefficient here actually. If we can change that particular coefficient, then we can change the turning radius as well, and that coefficient is angle here. So Suzuki didn't change that angle actually. So that's a problem. So Suzuki just stretched the vehicle and changed the wheelbase actually. So Suzuki stretched the vehicle by 340 mm. Suzuki stretched the wheelbase by 340 mm. The wheelbase is directly proportional to the turning radius, and Suzuki didn't change that coefficient of angle because if they really want to change that angle, they have to do a lot of engineering. Let me tell you why and let me tell you how. So the wheelbase is actually increased by 15%, which is a 340 mm of the original wheelbase of three-door Jimny. Likewise, if you calculate, the turning radius of the vehicle also increased by 15% because the wheelbase is increased by 15% because the turning radius is increased by 15%. So it's simply the wheelbase is directly proportional to turning radius. And to reduce that turning radius, which is not exactly in the same proportion, there is a lot of engineering actually required, and Suzuki avoid that engineering. And Suzuki said, पंजाबी में कहते हैं ना, स्यापा मुकाओ छोड़ो और इसको ऐसे ही चलने दो, right? So in the same fashion, Suzuki say, let it go like this. We don't want to do the re-engineering. But what are those factors actually? Based on that, actually, they said that. And based on that, basically, they retain the same proportion, which actually result to the very large turning radius of 5.7 meter. So let me tell you what sort of engineering I'm talking about. So when they took the approach of Siapa Mukau, Rata mat fellow, don't spill it off, don't touch to the rattling snake. So they actually took all those approaches and they really didn't do any re-engineering actually. So that's the main thing. They avoided that situation because not enough efforts been put actually to reduce that. But let's understand what are those components which actually were the challenge to do the re-engineering. Well, there were 3-4 challenges actually with Suzuki to reduce this turning radius from 5.7 to something. And what are those challenges? Let's understand those one by one. The first challenge was the redesigning re-engineering. But why this redesigning re-engineering actually required? The first reason is its suspension. They probably have to change the suspension. And the second component is the current steering setup. With the current steering setup, they are not able to actually decrease the turning radius. If at all, they could have been done this by using the same steering setup. Again, there is a re-engineering required for that. But the scrapping the current steering setup is not an easier thing, right? And if they have to scrap the current steering setup, then in that case, they again need to induct a new steering setup for that. They have to do a lot of testing to integrate that with the vehicle, and which probably take a lot of time to integrate with the current setup. And apart from that, the third thing is maybe lots of other small components they need to indent, they need to replace, and they basically need to integrate below actually. And the other potential reasons are the front differential box and the rigid axle. Because in the current setup, Suzuki is having the rigid axle. Probably Suzuki also need to remove that rigid axle in the front. So lot of engineering is actually required, and which is not an easier thing at all. So that's the reason Suzuki don't want to touch the rattling snake. So what they decided is Siapa Mukau. Let it go like this. Don't spill off everything. So hope now you understand why Suzuki didn't touch actually the current setup of suspension, the current setup of steering, and change this turning radius to 5.7 meter. And that is what it is. But now question is, can we do this aftermarket? Let's talk about that as well. So let's try to understand if at all you can decrease this turning radius to something with some aftermarket solution, or maybe put your smart brains into the engineering actually. So let's try to understand that as well. The short answer is it's a near to impossible. So actually there's nothing impossible in the world actually, but simply for any end user, it's a near to impossible. Even for many big engineers, it's a near to impossible, or it's a very difficult task. So let me tell you how. For example, this is the 4x4 vehicle, right? So meaning the 4x4 vehicle is there's a rear differential and there's a front differential as well. So there are two differential, and at the center of the vehicle actually there is a transfer case which actually engage these two differential boxes. So just imagine for a few seconds, this is not a 4x4 vehicle, but this is just a rear wheel drive. If you just imagine if it is a rear wheel drive, then what is going to happen? In that case, the first thing you need to change is the front suspension. When you change the front suspension, then you need to actually remove this rigid axle, and probably you need to put the independent front suspension, right? So when you do this, probably in that case, you need to remove its capability of front differential, right? If you do that, that means your 4x4 capability is gone. That means now you are running this vehicle with only a rear wheel drive. Now you have an IFS, right? The independent front suspension, and you remove the rigid axle. And in sync with that, you need to buy some steering setup which actually compliant with this particular vehicle, and you can use in this particular vehicle. If at all this is not possible to alter the current steering setup, so in that case you need to buy a different steering setup. You need to scrap the steering setup and need to change by that steering setup, and with a rear wheel drive you can enjoy the vehicle. So I think nobody want to do that, but if still they want to keep the 4x4 capability, probably this is a very difficult task to do. And again, this is a reason why Suzuki avoided that re-engineering that time. So this is a very difficult task, and they didn't change the angle of that steering, right? So that's a thing actually, that's a catch here. Well, there is a one more way in my mind actually you can do. Just wait for 3-door Jimny to be launched in India. Then probably you can exchange your 5-door Jimny with a 3-door Jimny in future. So this is I think the safest choice you have to reduce the turning radius. So so whatever it is just in front of you now. So I think these are the all issues, problems actually Suzuki had. I'm not saying Suzuki did a good thing or bad thing, but it is what it is. So let's talk about further and conclude the video. So my friends, good or bad, whatever it is, and this is how it is actually. The turning radius of huge 5.7 meter, and we have to live with that actually. We can't do anything with this turning radius. So it is a big task, right? And we have to live with that. Probably some of you, myself as well actually, I'm now quite habitual with this particular turning radius, but some of the older people, maybe age of above 60, they actually face lots of problems, especially in the city when they actually turn the vehicle. And I also actually face some issues where basically it's a very narrow terrain and you really need to take a sharp turn, hairpin bend. In that case, I really get irritated because I need to actually move the vehicle back and forth multiple times. Now I'm getting habitual of that. I'm fine with that. But it is not a case with many other people who basically buy this vehicle and they really want to get rid out of this particular huge turning radius. Unfortunately, there is no safe solution currently available for this one. If you enjoyed this video, like this video, share my content with your nearest and dear, subscribe my channel, and I will keep on bringing such contents in future as well. And currently you are watching Jimny Cookbook series where we talk about everything about Jimny. Hopefully you enjoyed that, and I will see you in the next video. Till then, bye bye.